Welcome, Tennessee Alkalites, on what is to be his 110th birthday on March 26th. And I am Jean Lichty, the Executive Director of Femme Theater Productions. And I cannot think of a better way to celebrate Tennessee Williams's birth and legacy than to have a conversation with the illustrious Emily Mann and Phylicia Rashad, both of whom have so many accolades and awards that I think if you really want a detailed and elaborate list, please go on to our playbill. But in summary, Emily, Phylicia, and Tennessee are not only all Tony nominees and winners, but they are also all members of the Theater Hall of Fame. So it is with my great pleasure and honor to introduce Emily Mann and Phylicia Rashad. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. Such an honor and such a pleasure to be speaking with you about such a seminal playwright. You know, I read last night, I was reading a little bit of John Layer's biography, and he was speaking about Tennessee's passing and all the accolades that were coming in. But the most poignant one to me was Arthur Miller, and Arthur Miller saying that Tennessee chose a hard life that required the skin of an alligator and the heart of a poet. Mm. And then he said, to his everlasting honor, he persevered and bore us all to greater glory. And indeed he did. So I would love to know how both of you had your first connection and introduction to Tennessee Williams. So, Phylicia, you were talking about when you first saw him as a child or saw his work on TV.
No, actually, it was in the theater, in the cinema.
No kidding.
Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Wow.
I remember that. I remember. Oh boy, do I remember that. then the next one I saw, I think I was. I think I was approaching adolescence when I saw Suddenly Last Summer in the cinema. I didn't understand what I was looking at. I thought the woman in the elevator was crazy. I just didn't understand what I was. I'm talking to you as I remember it as a young girl. So that lady in that elevator has a problem. And I just remembered from that. What I really remember is I remember Montgomery Clift's intensity.
Huh.
And I remember Elizabeth Taylor sobbing, "They devoured him." And I thought, oh God, that, but I was, as I say, I was, pubescent or whatever, and didn't really understand what I was looking at. When I became a student at Howard University, of course, we read the plays and discussed them as literary works. Owen Dotson loved Tennessee Williams. He really, Owen Dotson was the chair of the department. He was a brilliant theater person. He was he knew it all. And then finally, in my career, after many years of a career, I played Big Mama on Broadway and on the West End. And that was a thrill of a lifetime. I was working with James Earl Jones. I mean, what could go wrong?
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
May I ask what your first role was when you were at Howard? What your Tennessee? What were your?
Okay, so Amanda from Summer and Smoke, of course. And Laura in Glass Menagerie. That was those scenes.
Oh, great! Oh, great!
And I did see. I did see Orpheus Descending.
Oh yes.
Come on, Emily, and talk about this.
Mhm.
This man wrote things most people would never imagine, couldn't. I mean, their minds just wouldn't work the way his mind.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So Emily, tell us about meeting him in 1979. How thrilling.
Well, I had a similar trajectory as Phylicia had in his work. I would say then, besides they devoured him, I also, I would say there was a third after, and Cat and Hot Tin Roof on television. I also saw Streetcar. I saw the Kazan movie.
Oh, wow.
And you did too, I bet, Phylicia, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Then I directed They Devoured Him suddenly last summer in college. Again, I don't think I truly understood it either, but I was mesmerized by it.
Yes, right.
Oh, yes. But when I was in my late 20s, I was the first woman to have a fellowship in directing at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis. And I stuck it out, even though I was told women can't direct professionally. I stuck it out until I became the first woman to direct on the Guthrie main stage. And it was Alvin Epstein who had come that year from Yale. He had seen my work around the town, and he said, "You'd be the perfect director for Glass Menagerie." So I, of course, loved that play. Mm-hmm. And at that age, I was still entering it the way Phylicia did through Laura. But I adored each and every one of those characters, and I was working with the great Ming Cho Lee, who designed it. That Alvin introduced me to him, and Ming made me into an artist. He was one of the great artists of the world. And together we made this extraordinarily beautiful production with Barbara Bryn and Cara Duff McCormick playing Laura, and Jeffrey Chandler, and the late John Spencer playing Gentleman Caller.
Oh, wow.
And it was a very big hit. And Dakin, Tennessee's brother, heard about it and came to see it. And he adored it. And he said, "This is the best production of the play I've ever seen." And he went down to Barbara Bryn's dressing room and said, "You're the best Amanda I've ever seen. And I'm going to tell my brother that you and Emily Mann understand her like no one else has our mother." So cut away from that to Tennessee asking me then to direct what would be his last play. I didn't know that. And he sent me a first draft, which was a complete and total mess. I mean, some of his most gorgeous poetry ever. I mean, that's what we have to get to, is what Phylicia was talking about, that no one thought the way Tennessee Williams thought. He was, a great poetic dramatist. And there were some beautiful things, and it was a house not meant to stand, but he hadn't figured it out. And he said, "Oh, well, Miss Emily, you will just come to Key West and live with me and all of my friends and work with me every morning, and we'll just finish it together." And I panicked. I mean, he was my idol. I was 28 at the time. And I kick myself to this day that I didn't go. And then he died. But we spent many times together. And the first time we met, we were in Chicago. It was either Greg Mosher or Rock Schulfer's apartment in Chicago. And he came in with his flock of horrible young men in black capes. And he sat down and he said, "Oh, they're vultures." And of course, Phylicia, right? What did I think of? I immediately thought of They Devoured Him. And we started to talk, and we talked about Glass Menagerie, and he ended up sobbing in my arms saying, "If you understood my mother, like Dakin said, you understand me." And so we talked and talked and talked and talked until 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And that was my first time with Tennessee. Drinking and crying and carrying on.
That's extraordinary. That's truly extraordinary. Well, I have to say, other people that I know that have met him, they all talk about how just gentlemanly he was, and
Yes.
so gracious to all actors. I have a
Yes.
friend that understudied Kat, Elizabeth Ashley, and she said he would come backstage and was just like the shy, modest man. But then during the performance, you'd hear him roaring and cackling.
Cackling.
Right.
Yes.
It's totally inappropriate. Well, so can we move on to these groundbreaking productions that you both were involved in? So, yeah, Phylicia, can you talk about Cat on a Hot Tin Roof on Broadway and at the West End, directed by your sister, Debbie Allen?
Yes, I can talk about that.
Thanks.
It was, well, first of all, I never imagined I would share this stage with James Earl Jones. I just,
I bet.
I mean, you talk about manna from heaven.
Yeah.
Every moment is a plunge into truth on stage. Every single moment. I just thought I was the most fortunate person in the world to be in that play with that actor. Him as my leading man. Loved it. It was Big Mama. I learned some interesting things. Some people thought that Big Mama was weak. And Big Mama was strong.
Mm-hmm.
She was very strong because she knew how to love.
Yeah.
And she never let go of that. And she loved her family. She loved those little no-neck monsters. She did. She loved them. She loved Goober and his mess and May. That was her family. She loved these people. And so I understood this way of life. But, we were translating this culturally in a way without changing things.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something he had written in the, he had written, because this is the way that the Big Mama that he wrote would speak. She would say, I swan. Like I swear, like, oh my God, everything was I swan. And I kept trying to wrap my mind around that. And then I went to South Carolina and I heard a woman say, my land. I said, there it is. That's what you'll say. My land, my land. Wow. Instead of oh swan, because an African American woman wouldn't say oh swan. She would say my land. My land, So I had to find little things like that. That was just arbitrary. But the depth of her love and the way it comes through, when the way her love is just persistent and consistent, and so it's just palpable, mm-hmm. and her hurt when she finds out that he really is dying, because at first she thinks he's going to be okay. When the play is beginning, she thinks he's going to be okay, and then when she finds out that he's not, because he's her world, she said, she could be shrewd too.
A good Southern woman, yeah.
Oh
yeah.
She knew how to. Good Southern woman. She knew how to feign that she needed to feign around him.
Yes.
She knew how to do it.
Well, Phylicia, your sister in an interview said that she embraced colorblind casting for this production because she casts based on character, not color.
That's right.
And I mean, Joe told me that it was a tremendous hit. You, I think, sold all these tickets within like a week or something. So it obviously just resonated with so many theater goers.
When we were doing the play, I read somewhere that the play had been produced in Japan. Japanese actors,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it was a hit.
Wow.
Why not?
Why not? You could do
Yeah.
this play anywhere
That's
because
right.
of those familial relationships and human condition.
That's right.
It sings wherever
Because
you do it.
some of the reviewers go into this stuff about how Tennessee is writing about a specific Southern culture, white plantation owners, blah 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 blah. But I I think I agree with your sister that the characters took precedence over the color, and to not have you and James Earl Jones play those roles, I mean, that would be such a loss to our culture and to the theater world.
Thank you.
But there's also historical ignorance there. There were Black plantation owners.
Yeah.
You could even say that. You know,
Yeah.
there's absolutely no reason to limit.
It's an insult to Tennessee Williams too. I think it's an affront to his talent and his sensibilities. I think that's not correct.
And James Earl Jones did say, he said, "I've always wanted to play that cracker." And
Well, yeah, because the characters are strong. You know, the characters are strong. Yeah, that Tennessee was something.
Oh yes.
And universal.
That's what I found. That's really what I found in Cat and How to Ruth. That's what I found in Night of the Iguana. That's what I find in all of them. The themes are so universal.
Wow.
And very human. So human.
Mm-hmm.
He was sensitive, wasn't he, Emily?
His blessing and his curse. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He felt everything so deeply. Yes. Mm-hmm. And sometimes he could manage those huge emotions better than other times. Mm-hmm. But when he was able to channel it into the work, that was the glory, and what I'm at least, and I know you are, a grateful recipient of. I mean, what he was able to create out of that sensitivity. And it crossed gender, it crossed culture, it was a human. He just resonated to the human heart in a way. I don't know if there was anyone like him before or since. I don't know who.
Yeah. Well, Emily, didn't he help you kind of get the idea for Streetcar with the
well,
French
one of our wonderful
Yep.
Sabi evenings, I told him how upset I had been in college when I went to see the movie, and when Marlon Brando cleared the table with his one swipe, the cheers that went up when he, they didn't quite do the rape in the movie. And we talked about that. They were cheers. And I said how much that hurt me, because when I had read the play, how I read the play was that she was the heroine and he was the antagonist and he was the monster. And he said, "Oh, Emily, that's right." But of course, I can't say that publicly because I was able to go straight to the bank with everyone believing that it was, Stanley's play. Of course, it's Blanche's play. I said, "And what happened with the rape in Hollywood?" They wouldn't let us do it for real. It had to be, a smash of the mirror. So I said to him, "Well, one of the things I've always wanted to do was to put it in New Orleans and do it as a Creole play. That's what New Orleans, although you even say, you talk about the brown fingers on the piano, you talk about the most racially diverse neighborhood in the French Quarter." And he went, oh yes, absolutely." so he sort of gave me a blessing early in my career. And I always thought to get away from Brando, you should have to take a totally new look at the truth of that play. And the truth of that play has to do with all the different kinds of people in the quarter. So if you also know that there were African Americans, there were Black plantation owners, often, descendants of French Huguenots. So you have the Dubois sisters could very easily have been descendants of, plantation owners.
Mm-hmm.
And often they were very fair, but you don't have to go that way or not. But once you know what the history actually is, you can take artistic freedom. And Tennessee was all for it.
Wow.
Of course, a lot of folks have problems with it, but Tennessee didn't. And the other thing he said is most people don't understand how funny Streetcar is. And it wasn't until I had a cast of color doing it, and then you had an audience of color, a lot of people from the South who got the humor.
Oh, that's great.
I know happened with Cat. Suddenly, you get what Tennessee really meant. He didn't mean this sort of British, shriveled up, kind of acting, and then some crazed, testosterone-driven actor in the center of it. He wanted the whole thing happen.
Yeah.
And so, to me, doing it that way was a complete gift and revelation. And I just felt very in touch with him. I could hear him cackling in the back. I really could. In my mind's ear, I could hear him because I knew that would have made him happy.
Yeah.
And then the rape was brutal. Blair was unbelievable.
Oh, he's a theater animal,
Oh, is he ever?
Oh, God, he's wonderful.
And he was not going to be sentimental about that role. He let him go evil.
No.
And mean and brutal. And, you heard when he first came on, there were women going, oh, Blair, going crazy for him. He took off his shirt. Then we were,
oh, yeah.
And when the rape happened, you could hear people saying, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. Oh, no. And he said, not my Blair. I said, no, not your Blair, but Stanley. Mm-hmm.
That's right, Stanley.
But yeah, he really went for it. Daphne Rubin Vega played Stella, and Nicolare Parker was Blanche, and they were just amazing. Wood Harris played Mitch, broke your heart.
Mm-hmm.
He was Mitch. I remember when I was talking to him, he had just done The Wire, and I said to him, I don't know, Mitch really he's a mama's boy. He loves his mother so much. And he said, Emily, I am a mama's boy. I live for my mother. I was like, oh, we talked about it. He brought such heart to it. And in fact, when we were doing the show, he brought his mother to live with him in New York. So he was cooking for him and too much. We had the most wonderful cast. Everyone was in love with each other. And then the great Carmen de Lavallade. I made a role for her. I made a whole town. And she said, well, these are my people. So I said, well, name your character, because she was the woman sitting on the stoop. So she called herself Creola.
Huh.
And she was one of the only white folks in the play were the upstairs neighbors. Everyone else was Black, Latino, and all different shades and mixtures thereof. And it was New Orleans. And then we had in between scenes, Camille Brown choreographed, and keeps thinking. Terrence Blanchard, who's a great New Orleans jazz trumpeter and composer, did the music. So, and we spent a lot of time with him down in New Orleans and got the music happening and the moves, and we did
I wish I'd seen it.
Oh, I wish you had.
I do. I was in Arkansas with Austin doing a lots of releases with. But Emily, did you make any script adjustments, or did you have?
I think there were 5 changes which we
That's
got
it.
the estate to approve. One was the restaurant they went to, so we did Dookie Chase. So because the restaurant that was mentioned, they couldn't have gone to. It's
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
We changed a couple of racial words that I worked with Blair. I can't remember now. I could find it for you if you were interested. There were like two. Because we wanted to make it right for the actors doing it. And we picked couple of very upsetting words that really did the trick.
Huh.
And yeah, but basically no, like Phylicia, no. Didn't need to.
Didn't need to. So can we talk about Night of the Iguana? Because I have to tell you that the response for both the direction and Phylicia for your Maxine was extraordinary. And during Christmas time, I got COVID, which was not fun, but I was picking up these emails to La Femme just in awe of what we had done. And it was, I tell you, I didn't care about having COVID. I really didn't. And so, Emily, could you just talk about your vision and bringing Phylicia aboard?
Well, I had an odd relationship to this play. I had seen two productions of it I didn't like, and I don't remember having read it until you asked me to read it.
Okay.
And so I read it, and as I was reading it, who popped into my head was Phylicia and Dylan.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, okay, let's start there. And because we were in COVID time, our former president was still in office, and it was still a nightmarish situation with us not knowing how the election was going to go.
Right.
And I was reading it, Tennessee never makes mistakes on where he sets his plays. And this was on a precipice. And I felt like we were all on a precipice at that moment. And I felt that brought me up to the moment. And suddenly the Germans had the Nazis, which I had never understood in the writing before, had new meaning.
Yes.
Right? And so I began to go, oh, yes, this is a piece I could get interested in. And then I thought about, again, how multicultural, I hate that word, but he had Germans, Mexican, he had the German language, he had Spanish, and he had English going on in this play. And I wanted it to be utterly authentic to who he was. And so I wanted to make sure that we got actors who were bilingual, or at least were perfect in Spanish and in German. And then I wanted also to make sure that the other principals in the play, Eugene and Austin coming from Nantucket and being New Englanders, as opposed to Maxine and Shannon from Texas and it's from the Southwest. And so I wanted to, get all of that going, because when you start drilling down into going to who Tennessee's actually writing about, he takes care of all the rest. And I wanted to make sure that authenticity was there, and to bring new life to the show, because both the movie and the productions I'd seen didn't seem to care about any of it. And I also felt when I read Maxine, I felt so deeply for her. And I knew that Phylicia would too. And that what I had seen, just simply making her a sex bomb with the buttons down and the tight pants, was of no interest to me. And I knew it wouldn't be to my colleague.
Um,
So
yeah.
there, I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then, of course, Jean, with you coming on, I had not thought of her. She's always played as the most peculiar of people rather than someone whose soul is searching in a way that's different from others, which you found.
Oh. Well, I have to say some of these emails said that they understood the play for the first time. And so, which was just wonderful to read. So, Phylicia, I read an interview when you were in London doing Cat, and you said that when you were a younger actress, that you focused more on the doing, but as you've grown as an actress, you've gotten more into what's underneath, what's behind. And so, is that the way you approach Maxine, which was inspired, I must say?
You know, the biggest clue, and he gave clues, the biggest clue was that laugh.
That's right.
That laugh.
Huh.
That laugh told me a lot about her.
And that's the first thing we hear from you, right?
Yeah.
Once you did it, I went, oh.
Yeah, brilliant, right?
Because she had to laugh like that.
Yeah.
That's how she could live. She had to laugh like that. It was she made it appear as if it was a piece of cake and there was nothing to worry about, and this is just fine. This is what I do. But no. No. So my mother is a poet. And when I was a little girl, my mother you would ask me about my mother. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My mother would give me aphorisms. She'd give us aphorisms. And as little children, we would say them, even if we didn't fully understand what they meant. And one of them was, the inner reality creates the outer form. That is something I teach acting students. The inner reality creates the outer form. If I can find the center of a character's heart and the center of a character's thought, that's where I build from.
Ooh.
Yeah. 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 Otherwise, I've not really understood the person. And then that's no fun. Yeah. Because that's what I want to do more than anything else, is to really understand that person. Uh-huh. And she was a lonely, lonely person. She was so lonely. And she whiled away her hours the way she did. But she was a very lonely woman. And life had been a disappointment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she was quite disappointed in herself. But she didn't have an avenue until the end. Now we're going to make this into the 4 seasons. And we're going to... And it'll be great. And you take care of the young woman and I'll take care of the guy. And Night of the Iguana is really funny. Right?
Oh,
very funny.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, so we also got several emails about how they felt that this production was, or this presentation was women-centered, and that, and they unfavorably spoke about the John Huston film, which some people love, but they thought it was a bunch of male shouting and that the women weren't really highlighted. But this presentation, a number of viewers said they felt that the women were. So was that intentional on either your part, Emily, or your part, Phylicia, or did that just evolve?
Well, now you know Dylan McDermott was in this presentation.
Yeah.
And, and he was more than eye candy, let me just say. He's a force to be reckoned with.
He was.
His facility with the language.
I know.
Oh, I could just listen. I was mesmerized by how he would find those qualities. And I just thought, okay, Mr. McDermott.
Yes,
Right?
indeed. Absolutely.
Right? And so when they say it was female centric, well, all I can say is he lent a lot to that because of the way he played with us.
I would agree with that.
Yes.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And we all kind of bounced off him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. I think that maybe what they're getting at is when you look at the movie, you don't really understand the women. What Phylicia's mother was saying about the inner
reality
making for the outer form. There was a lot of outer form.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the women really were given that kind of either permission or I don't know what it was, but that you got more of the outer form. And I think that that just, of course, wouldn't interest me, and it wouldn't interest the two of you, nor Roberta, nor any of the others. But also, I think it is that Shannon was not just screaming at the wind.
Right.
He needed to be saying what he was saying to the people, to the woman. Usually, he was speaking to. Or to himself, and often that was the female side of himself. And so that might be what it is. I would never have named it that way. That was completely unconscious. But when you do Tennessee at all, the way he intended it, you have to go inside each and every one of the characters, no matter how they have 3 lines or they are singing arias all night. And you have to go in and have that 3-dimensional quality of what makes them live, and you can't let anyone out. I mean, I felt that the man who played Hank showed us his heart.
Oh yeah, the men were wonderful. The men were wonderful.
He was so
Randolph, amazing. Yeah.
I mean, everyone was on the precipice. Everyone was in a very high stakes situation.
High stakes.
Life and death for most of them. So,
and also Dylan brought the Southern gentleman too. I'd never seen Shannon play like that.
Well, this is our 3rd Williams together. Dylan and I did Glass Menagerie 3 times, and he did the one that I premiered my debut on the McCarter stage 30 years ago when I became artistic director was Glass Menagerie with Ming Sen, and Dylan played Tom.
Wow.
And then the second time I did an adaptation of Baby Doll. And he played the Eli Wallach part, and I found in the Princeton archives for some reason Tennessee had left. He had left the all these drafts of Baby Doll that didn't get made and it didn't get into the movie. And one of them was about him being Sicilian and what the racism that was coming at him, or the cast. I'm just in the middle of Isabel Wilkerson's book Cast, and if you have not read it, you have to read this book.
Oh yeah, it is amazing. It's brilliant. Yeah, it's brilliant.
And in the South, what was happening also when Sicilians came in, and how they also were being lynched and driven off the land, and like black people. And he, there was a speech I found that had been cut, where he talks about "Don't you call me," and he uses all of the epithets against Italians, and the horrible husband had called for the Klan to come and get him, and he let it fly. But at any rate, there was Dylan doing that role, and that was
Wow.
in the Delta, and then this, and so I don't know. Dylan and Tennessee and I have some kind of thread.
Yeah, you really have a history. Yeah, you really have
We
a history.
do.
So Emily, also it was mentioned how whatever you did, many viewers felt that you really used Zoom or virtual or StreamYard in a way that was revelatory, and wanted to know what you did. And one viewer wanted to know if you were always wishing to do it on stage when you were working with us, and comparing did you embrace our virtual reality? It was different, right?
Oh yeah, I did embrace it. I also was blessed to have Beowulf Borit, who did those beautiful watercolors that backed everyone and gave, a lift visually. I realized I just fell in love with the close-up, and I thought, what have I been doing all my life? I've been doing theater all my life. I was thinking not only would I want to do this production on stage, I thought I would like to do the movie of this. Yes. I would love to all just get together on a cliff in Mexico with the film crew.
Oh, what a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, what about you, Phylicia? Yeah, what did you think of our little boxes?
Okay, so this was, I can't remember which number Zoom this was for me during this period of COVID, but it was absolutely the best.
Really?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the first time I get to work with Emily as director, directing me. That in itself,
Right. Yeah.
that in itself was a tremendous gift to me.
Yes.
But the way it was organized technically, that technical organization was like spot on. Emily was so specific about what that would be. And so it felt like, we were just floating through it. But she was very specific about it. And it really helped us. I mean, the play takes place in a day.
That's true.
There's a lot going on in that day.
A lot going on in that day.
There's a lot going on in that
day. And we're also all in cubicles, right? And so having our little boxes, there was some sort of, symmetry.
And interaction.
Yes.
You really felt that people were it was as if we were in the same room.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
It was.
It was that's quite a feat, Miss Emily.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miss Phylicia.
And yet we were able to connect, which maybe it was momentary, but Tennessee said in several interviews that's what he considered to be the best part of life, is when you can connect with somebody for however long. Sometimes it's a minute, sometimes like he said with his grandparents, it's a lifetime. His maternal grandparents, when he writes about them, it's incredible.
I thought Roberta was a scream.
Fantastic.
She is amazing. She is amazing. Judith Fellows, right? Judith Fellows.
And Austin.
And Keith Randolph Smith.
Randolph, right?
I thought he was a brilliant Jake.
There was great casting, Emily. Great casting.
My dear.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, the big gift for me also was to be finally in a place where I could be working with Phylicia, not as a producer or a supporter, but together, director to actor. Oh my God, what a gift.
Yeah.
We have you to thank for that, Jane.
Yes, we have you to thank for that.
Oh, well, as I guess we wrap things up, and I hate to say farewell because this has been so extraordinary with two of you, but I have to reference Alma in Summer and Smoke when she says to John, and by the way, Emily, who was like, you were so right, Phylicia, she's such a gift as a director, calling me on the phone on break saying, Gene, and one of the things that she did say to me is that there is Alma in Hannah. And so the night before we taped our video or recorded, I read the play.
Oh, yes.
And in that beautiful play, and Alma, one of Tennessee's favorite characters, she says to John, I say, ask for all, but be prepared to get nothing. Well, when I started this project almost a year ago, I did indeed ask for all, and I got everything. I cannot thank you all enough. It has been extraordinary, really. Learning and just working with the both of you has been amazing. So I thank you so much. And to our viewers, please make a journey, as Tennessee would say, make voyages, attempt them. It's all there is. Please check out our presentation. I don't think you will be disappointed. It has been extraordinarily well received because of these two women. So I thank you, Maxine. Maxine. And happy birthday, Tennessee Williams. We love
Happy
you.
birthday, Jean.
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday, Jean.
Oh, thank you, Phylicia.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you one last thing. Would you all, Emily, you were talking about this being a film, but you do see this on stage, right?
Oh, of course I do.
Iguana.
I would
Yeah.
love to do it on stage.
Okay.
I would adore doing it on stage with this cast.
Yeah, and the intimacy that we developed, I would hope that we could transfer it, right?
Of course we can.
Yeah.
Of course we can. With the talent we're talking about, because everyone's a stage animal of this crowd. So yes.
Yeah.
But the intimacy, I don't want to lose the intimacy. So
I know.
you don't want to be in a big house that's a Barney house. You want to have an intimate theater.
An intimate
theater. There are a number of playhouses that would be wonderful for it. And I love, of course, we bring the audience to us.
Yeah.
Of course. We can do it.
Yeah. Well,
But I did love looking into
for another day.
eyes. Everyone's wondering, oh, or Dylan's eye, I mean, your eyes. I mean, there were moments where I was like, it was so subtle and so emotionally potent.
Yeah.
Seemingly as if you're doing nothing, just being. Ooh. Yeah.
Well, Phylicia was dazzled by Dylan. Well, I was dazzled by Phylicia. In my beginning scene with her, I just was so dazzled by your beauty. It really was. I was like, oh my God. And I think that that's important between those two women in that play.
Oh yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hannah is kind of stunned and so impressed by Widow Falk, right? And the StreamYard allowed all of that to come to fruition.
And she saw you.
Yeah, she did. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
She definitely did. It was amazing.